Hello, travelers, and welcome to a special episode with Nate from Family Tabletop, where we're going to be wildly speculating about what to expect from Mounthaven, which we believe should be coming sometime, hopefully in March. This is not a we have hidden information about this. This is wild speculation based off of largely what we have from the initial rulebook, both images and how other factions have come out. So tell us why we're wrong, either before we find out real information or when we're completely wrong when we actually get the information.
Indeed.
Come back and say you were all wrong. But yeah, thanks for joining me, Nate.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I have lots of notes, but why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah.
Whatever bird's eye view you want to take a look at Mounthaven, I have a few different layers of thoughts on it myself.
Yeah, for sure. So my thought was we'll kind of go through a few things. So first, and you can definitely help a bit with it more with this, is what we know about Mounthaven, lore wise, because this game, at least my view is they're really good at making the lore actually match the tabletop. So knowing
Yeah.
who Mounthaven is will help us guide our guesses at what we might be seeing, what we already do know for sure, and what we can kind of assume based off of other releases, and then talk about the units we expect to see in the initial launch. And then I know in our previous our talks ahead of time, there's some things that we expect to come down the road that I think we're both pretty excited about, based on some of the really cool images from the core book.
Mounthaven is a faction that I'm particularly interested in because my wife is interested in getting into Warcrow with me, and she picked that faction before she knew it wasn't out. So she's been waiting for it for like 2 or 3 months. So I'm excited for what they do with this faction because it's a weird group in the lore of the game. It's
Mm-hmm.
like Illuminati dwarves, like they're strange, and I have a few notes about the general idea of this faction. They are essentially the living memory of Lindworm. They're family oriented. They're
Mm-hmm.
cunning. If you want to stop me at any point, I have
No,
like
no, no.
nine
Go,
of
go
these
in.
things. Okay, okay. They're cunning. They have a strange thing called the master plan, and the master plan is alluded to quite a bit, but I don't think you get a clear idea of what that is. But their application of the master plan is like all of their ultimate goal. They should have magic weapons and items, like probably on their units.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. They are a faction that is motives behind methods. Anything that they're doing, there'll be a reason why they're doing that specifically. And technology is potential to the point where they would have automatons, gadgets, as I've mentioned, and possibly something from the Colossi. Although what exactly is unsure. And then the last two I have is let's see, mechanisms that I would expect to see in general, but I don't know what they would call it or how it would work. Would be something that would essentially say we're winning even when we're losing, like it was all part of the plan.
Mm.
Something like that, like a general rule or mechanic that is even when our units are losing, that was what we wanted to have happen the whole time. I don't know how they'll make that come off. Last thing is there's an intense cast system that might work out mechanically as well.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think you covered, I think, a large portion of everything. There's parts of them that are, in my mind, like standard dwarves you expect, right? Like you have
Sure.
them being miners, they're like super craftsmen, they're warriors, but then they start getting into that more advanced tech, and for me, weird compared to most dwarves in other settings, they're much more magically. They have a lot more ties to magic.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't dwarves from a lot of fantasy settings that are, we don't use any magic. We have some gunpowder to compensate for our lack of magic. These dwarves really use magic quite a bit, and in that technology, they remind me almost of the Dwemer in Skyrim that you don't really
Oh,
ever
yes.
see, but you
Yeah.
have all these clockwork machines that are powered by magic. So I kind of get this like almost feeling like that to some extent from them, of this, they know more, they've been around more. The master plan thing I find is humorous, because I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, oh yeah, the dwarves are the bad guys, but the scions are constantly, they have a master plan too, and they're considered the bad guys for their master plan. So
The Scions to me are definitely the bad guys because I've chosen the Saiyanin as my faction, and the Scions are kind of the inverse of the Saiyanin. But you made a good point saying the Dwemer from like Skyrim and Oblivion. I think that's probably a good vibe check to go with like how these guys work. I and being tied to magic is an interesting thing for these dwarves because of the way the lore says that the metal orichalcum works.
mhm.
Where like orichalcum is essentially the reason why magic works the way it does in the planet, and its relationship between the weird satellite called the War Crow and then the two moons mean that magic works through orichalcum to some degree.
Yeah.
And the dwarves are masters of orichalcum to the point where they know all the different ways to mix it with different metals to get different responses and things. So yeah, I would imagine this is a faction that does magic differently than any other faction. And in fact, when I went through the whole list of the units coming out, I only saw one unit that I was like, that might be a spellcaster.
Mhm.
The keeper of the sacred flame. I'm like, yeah, that's like a healer, maybe a range DPS aura character, but all the other characters, I don't get any spellcaster vibes from them.
See, we're gonna disagree there when we
Okay,
get
okay,
to
go ahead.
them.
Good, good.
Just because I think of some of the stuff we know from Workrow Adventures, but
Oh,
yeah, just quickly going
tell,
back to
tell me
the
more. Tell
well,
me more about that because I haven't looked that much into Warcrow
so
Adventures.
one of the characters from Workrow Adventures is a folder. He's the guy with the
Oh,
cool
okay,
origami fox with the like magical fox shooting out of it. So
okay,
he's essentially their version of a caster. They cast using the orichalcum and harnessing the power of inside of it, the elemental forces inside of it, more than
Mhm.
some of the other ways people cast. And I recall, I believe in Adventures, he's like particularly resistant to getting tinge, just unlike other casters. So I expect
Okay.
to see some of that coming in from their casters. The Keeper of the Sacred Flame also could be a cast. I'm not
Sure.
sure. Like he could be more of like that feudum style priest style caster as opposed to
Sure.
the more wizard style casters of the other factions. If that makes sense. But
No, that would make sense. That's funny you mentioned the folder. On my notes for the folder, the first thing I wrote was no idea. I don't know how this character works. Is this character? I mean, like I thought maybe it'd be similar to like a war surgeon or an engineer, manipulating sheets of orichalcum, somewhat like a support unit or maybe even a trapper. But reading through the lore for the folder, I was like, I don't know what the heck this guy is. This guy's. I mean, but you saying that it kind of works like a caster makes sense. I still think the dwarves are probably going to have their own flavor of casting,
mhm.
and I wouldn't be surprised if their version of casting doesn't make them take on the tinge.
Yeah, I
So I'm
expect
not I'm
them.
not I'm
I expect them
or
to be like the
resistant.
scions, right? Like where scions have
Mm,
their own,
yeah,
way of interacting with tinge and casting. I expect
sure.
the Mounthaven to be similar in that they have a special way of dealing it, but unlike it would be like the opposite. Whereas the scions are like, yeah, yeah, just give me all the tinge you want. Let me
You
use
know,
it. I feel
yeah.
like Mounthaven I could see being the opposite, where like they don't gain tinge, or who knows, maybe they'll get their own tinge table like scions. But
Mm,
just want to double back to something you were talking about with the orichalcum and all the different metals. There's that great chart, and I have it up on the screen now, where in the book where they talk about all the different types of orichalcum,
yeah.
or all the different
The
alloys,
mixes.
yeah, they make by
Yeah.
mixing different things with orichalcum and the different effects. Just quickly, because I don't know how easy it'll be for people to read that don't have the book. So you got blue orichalcum, which is specifically good for, was it hard, good for use with mechanical equipment. You have purple orichalcum that's good for electrical components. You get the green orichalcum, which I found this confusing. I had to read it like 3 times in the book because it says it's resistant to water, air, and fog, but it
Hmm.
says it's non-capitalized fog. It's lowercase fog, and it's used
Oh yeah,
on edged weapons. So this is like normal real world fog. Like this is to prevent things from corroding and damaging your metal.
interesting.
Unlike later, with we'll see in this
Yes.
after red orichalcum, which is super gunpowder essentially, which is why we'll see a bunch of guns and firearms in the faction. But you get to the I don't know why they don't call it white orichalcum, but the calcitrum, which that actually protects from the fog. It's set like
Actual fog.
the
Right.
creepy evil fog.
Yeah. I like that note a lot because I'm hoping they lean into that a little bit. I would like to see some kind of dwarf unit that either interacts with the fog or is immune to it or something, because they actually have a section where they talk about a specific type of unit. I wrote down the name of it, the Nebulants, and the Nebulants are fog navigators.
Hmm.
Or not orcs, dwarves that go down into the bottom layers of the fog sea to find special minerals. And I'm like, I want that guy as a unit. That guy sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to deal with the scions.
Yeah, and that would be really cool. And with the golden or I expect people don't need to, but it seems like my guess would be in their paint jobs we start seeing these different
You
colors of orichalcum expressed. So, for example, like the folder, the we don't have the picture of an actual folder, but we do have the model from Warcrow Adventures in the rulebook. And when he's painted, he has that little golden fox,
mm,
and that is folded orichalcum. So my guess is it's painted in that more golden color as opposed to orange because it is that gold orichalcum, because it kind of is acting as that like almost casting focus type thing for the spell casting. So and I think that's why we see like the standard Mounthaven color is that orange color, because it's the orange orichalcum that is, you know, orichalcum plus steel, and it makes the best arms and armor. So I do enjoy how it seems to be, at least in what we've seen so far, they're using that lore about, this is the color of the metal that makes the good armor. That's why our armor is this color. So
this
yeah,
is like a painting table. It's really, I mean, I think it's
yeah,
really helpful for someone who's coming to this thing and going, I want to make an army that's lore accurate. Let me put a few units in this color pattern to suggest that they are defended against something specific.
no,
I like that type of stuff, and
and
that's
it almost explains too why all they have the blue glowing accents, right? Because those are the electronic components, which it's the blue orichalcum that's good for
right,
electronic components. So
right.
I'd be curious to know which came first, the person that painted the models and then they came up with the chart after, or
Mm,
which way it went. But it's definitely a cool little thing, and I definitely think will influence models. Like as you were saying, if there's a unit that's fog resistant, we'll probably see them painted in more
sure.
white, right? So um I guess moving along. So I guess talking through what we kind of this I'll talk you through what my reading through, looking at different images, what I think we know for sure at this point. So
That's a good
like
start. Go for
looking
it.
through the rule book, we've seen 5 models. My counting, there's 5 models that we've seen that are new and are part of this. There seems to be there's 2 more like basic looking dwarfs wearing like that greenish blue like diamond pattern outfit. There's the
Hmm.
female one with the big old hammer. There's the guy with the banner that's on fire, who I
Hmm.
think we can surmise who he is based on names of other things. But and then we have the lady with the big old backpack of all the information, writing her lore. So we can. I think there's definitely assumptions we can have. So we've seen 5 though. So that we assume, we know at least 5 models that are coming. The other models shown in the rulebook for anyone that's keeping up while watching the video, there's the person with their hammer above their head in the shield, one of the Warcrow
Hmm.
Adventures models. There's the guy with the fox, another Warcrow Adventure model. So they're not going to be, I'd be shocked if they were part of the regular release. And then in terms of us trying to figure out what we expect in like that initial launch, that initial action pack bundle that seems to happen when we get new factions, assuming it follows the pattern of the 5 previous factions, which I think is fair. I don't know if you think it's a fair assumption, but I think it's probably a fair
Yeah,
assumption.
I
So
don't think they would. I don't think they would mess with that too much unless they were going to start making like, let's say, larger packs.
yeah,
With like a higher point cost or something. But if they're going to keep it up with the 10 units, with a couple units that have 2 different cards to be used for that same model, I think they're probably going to stick with
yeah,
what's been done for all the previous factions.
yeah. So from that, we can assume we'll get at least one high command,
Mhm.
some sort of caster, because they've all had some sort of magic caster, some sort of attachable support character,
Mhm.
one 4 model unit that's like the basic troop unit for the faction. So like, the protectors of the forest or the bucklermen of Mounthaven, and then some
Yeah.
other support. And then if we're lumping in the, what would be the beyond box.
Yeah, like
Uh,
a two model unit.
exactly. Yeah. Their equivalent of the Shadows of the U. Because I expect it'll
There
be
you go.
more like the CNN where it's, they won't have a beyond box. They'll just have the one action pack that has all those models. So I think that's fair to say that's what we'll see in the initial. They might do the whole bundle thing where there's also like another unit and then like the limited edition character. I
Right,
think I
right.
think with
Like they
CNN it
did
was a
with
Grand Captain
yes.
or
Yeah.
the Syzygian for Feudum, or the Bear. Right, the Bear was the
Right.
initial one. So I don't know if you've given thought to who you expect will be those different things.
Um, I have some thoughts on that actually. Based on what they've done with the previous ones, they put a lot of character, like a lot of the named characters, kind of front and center. Like we got Drago, we have Albrecht, we
Yeah,
have I can't remember the name of the CNN High Command, the
Leo
Marshal
Slaith.
lady.
Leo Slaith.
There we go.
Yeah.
And then as well in that box, there's usually like a second kind of important named character, like a lesser named character. For example, in the Beyond Hegemony pack, they have that
Yeah.
lady, the sniper girl, and so you basically have like 2 kind of front and center named characters, at least with a bunch of kind of tertiary models. And I think that's, I mean, my guess would be they'd put Olga, Princess of the Mountain, in the box.
I think
She's
that's
got red
fair.
hair. She's kind of iconic.
And we've
Basically
seen her
just
model, I
throw,
think, too. Right?
yeah, and I think she kind of represents iconically the dwarven faction.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way Drago represents hegemony of Embersig, I think this character in the lore stands as probably like one of the forefront characters. She's part of the cast, but she's also kind of fighting against the cast because she's trying to be a warrior, even though she shouldn't. And I don't know. I would be surprised if she wasn't
I would be
the main
too.
character.
And one of the main reasons, and I think you can't see it right now, but the people watching is one of the models that we've seen, so we assume will be part of the action pack, right, is identical to the art that's under her entry. Like it's the exact same pose. The only difference
Yeah.
is in the like the artwork, her face, she's facing towards camera,
Mm.
and in the model she's facing like forward instead. So yeah, I'd expect Olga.
Okay.
Now I think usually I don't know what her generic would be, right? Like usually the named
I
character, I don't know if
Yeah,
it,
I couldn't. I thought of that too. I couldn't find her unless they're hiding it somewhere in the hammer and anvil idea. My thought was they might be using a generic system for their high command because the dwarves of Mounthaven have a weird command structure when they're in battle. They
mhm.
have the hammer and the anvil, and the anvil is supposed to be like kind of a religious force, and the hammer is supposed to be kind of a militarized force, and they're supposed to work together
Mhm.
to take out units in unison or something. And so they might have some generic name for their high command, like they would have Olga, which in the lore it says she generally is a hammer, and they might have a generic unit like hammer or
Yeah.
something.
Well, it's interesting. I guess on that. So she's weird because despite being the princess of Mounthaven, like she's never the anvil because they don't really want her to be, even though the anvil's supposed to be like the highest ranked, in terms of social hierarchy. And then the hammers, I love in the lore. It's like they decide who the hammer is by just fighting it out before a fight, and she
Yes.
just usually wins. But I could see there being a generic hammer or anvil, but that also leads to like something I was thinking of, which is they make a very clear point in that section to say, unlike other forces, they always have two people leading. So I
Mm.
wonder if they'll
Oh,
have like some sort of special rule with the hammer and anvil where you actually essentially get two high commands,
that would be interesting.
right? Like you can
Yeah,
have one from you. It's like you can have two high command models as long as one has hammer and one has anvil. Like if hammer and anvil are separate keywords. Uh,
right.
I wonder if we get something like that down the road or even right off the bat. But I do like Olga.
It
She's
would
really
also
cool. Speaking of like the painting influenced by lore, she has like those metal plates hanging off the front of her belt, which
mm,
are started as little silver rings that she. Or sorry,
yes.
they started silver beads for each of her kills when she was going and killing red caps. Every time she got a kill, she got a little bead, and then the beads became so much she smelted them into these giant plates.
And keeps
Just
tracking her kill counts with them. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I would wonder if they would do something like some war games have this model does this thing if something else is happening. So they would have like here's her model unit, and if you use her as the hammer, she gets this additional property. If you use her as the anvil, she gets this additional property.
Hmm.
I don't know if they would do that because that would mean that a card would have dead text at times.
Yeah.
And usually that's
Well,
like antithetical to simple design.
they did
But
something
that
like
was
that
one thing that
recently.
what's that?
They did something like that recently because the
Which
the
one?
new marked have
Oh,
one of their abilities is, depending on if you have other models in your company, you get to choose one of four abilities. So like if you have a needle in
hmm.
your company, you could choose the needle ability. If you don't, that ability on the card does nothing. So
Oh, okay.
I
Then I
they are
wouldn't be
willing to.
surprised if they did that then and they made cards, probably not two separate cards, but if they made a card and at the text at the bottom was if they're being used as the handle, this is what they can do, and if they're being used as the anvil, this is what they can do. Hammer, anvil,
Yeah.
different mechanics. Wouldn't surprise me because as it is, the Mount Haven dwarves seem like a faction that is very different from the other factions.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, they're gonna have like support units and they're gonna have multi troop units, but otherwise they seem to be more of a unit in the lore that works together where like Saiyanin can go off on their own doing their own thing, and Hegemony has like focus on stuff. These seem to be we dual attack people at the same time. We want
Yeah.
multiple groups engaged against the same enemy, ganging up on them. At
Which
least
will be
that's what the lore seems to
which will be
imply.
interesting because in terms of like specific things I expect to see, I expect to see for the most part dwarves to be like 2-3 movement, right? Like every dwarf, we've seen
Mm,
3 dwarf units so far in terms of like because of hegemony. They all have
mm,
a few things in common. They're all 2-3 movement, which
yeah.
is the slowest outside of husks, which I expect we'll see for the most part. I don't expect the doors to be quick, especially because they're also heavily armored, a lot of them. And they all have blue dispel. So I wouldn't be surprised if like every
Mm,
Mounthaven unit has at least blue dispel. In
that's
terms of like
interesting.
Olga, I don't know. I expect she'll be a pretty like durable brawler.
Sure. Yeah.
Standard 4 wound character, hits like a hammer. Uh, uh, fairly durable because she has just like so much armor on. Like
Right.
she makes the feudum armor look less, and realistically, what we know is Mounthaven has the best quality armor, so because it's essentially all made of the magic, like it's all made of orichalcum, which is insane.
Most of the units look like little miniature mechs. Like they actually look like an orc kind of in their own mech suit, which makes it crazy when you see them inside of the actual mech suit. Then it's like a mech suit in a mech suit.
Yeah. Well, and if assuming the blue glowing parts are like the electrified orichalcum. Anyone that
Yeah.
has blue glowing bits means it has essentially almost like powered armor, which
There you go.
is kind of cool. Um,
Yeah.
the next one I think I pulled out model wise, or thing I assume is the model, is you were mentioning it before, the Keeper of the Sacred Flame. He's one of the other
Mm.
models we've seen. Again, we have the art right beside the model, right beside his like
Right.
flavor text, and then the model looks almost identical. It has that very distinct burning banner. So
Hmm.
you said you had some thoughts. I assume this guy will be some sort of character, obviously character, officer, support. But what do you expect to see for this guy on the tabletop? Do you think?
Um, someone like the dwarves in general, to me, they felt like an army that's looking for auras to go out,
Hmm.
specialized auras. In some cases, generic auras. Like Drago has an aura just while he's on the battlefield. Everyone gets his willpower. So like
Yeah.
that's a pretty powerful aura to bring out. The Sayanin have some auras that go to like a certain range. If another friendly model is within 10 or 12, then you get to do this thing. A bunch of these guys, like the Memorialists and Sylvia Warda, those are both characters that would definitely have auras. And the Keeper of the Sacred Flame felt to me like someone who's either doing a spell cast to heal and damage people, or heal or damage people. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a unit that had like within range 5 or something. You are going to heal all friendly units and damage all enemy units.
Hmm.
Like some kind of like consecration wave or something. Um, like it didn't seem like a super powerful unit, and in fact it was kind of saying like, yeah, we usually don't bring these guys out of the house. They're usually just warming all the fires inside the place, but occasionally we need to bring them places, and when we do, they both heal and they stitch up wounds. And I was like, okay, so this is like I don't this is like a low damage, low healing generalized unit. I didn't get like a powerhouse, but maybe someone who's just splashing out health and damage. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking something similar. So, like, War Surgeon esque in that, like, the main thing that jumps out in their text is talking about them healing wounds, and in the very cool way of it manifesting as like burning fire, leaving like burns, like burn scars on the people that they've healed, which is kind of horrifying. Like you cut someone down, they're bleeding, and then suddenly their wound bursts into flame and essentially cauterizes. Um,
Yeah.
so I was thinking,
Hey,
yeah,
let's fix
something
that for you.
similar, some sort of support healing type thing. Uh, I was thinking it would be cool because of this kind of making their warriors scarred and more like intimidating almost. If either he gives a unit intimidating, somehow maybe has some sort of frightened trigger on it. Like I feel like there might be something like that he brings to the unit as well as some sort of support healing. If he attaches, I assume he's definitely one of those. He seems like one of those characters that's gonna boost the morale for sure, maybe by a
Hmm.
bunch, just because it seems like their role is to kind of one. They're a banner bearer. They're a banner bearer
Yeah.
that's giving you flaming healing. So they're definitely cool. He has a really weird pick hammer thing too, which I have
Yeah,
no
it's a
idea.
weird hammer. It's a hammer axe. Oh no, it's got a billows on the back of it, so
Yeah,
it's like a hammer that shoots fire or something.
yeah. So I wonder if he'll have some
So,
sort of like short range ranged attack, like flame spitter attack, like a weaker version of what the war rig has, because it
mm,
even has two little canisters on the back, so it literally might just be a mini
mm.
flamethrower. So yeah, he's really cool. Definitely looking forward to
I
see
wou't
what
have
they do
thought of
there.
this guy going in the starter box initially, but now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, that I think that's a good unit to put in there. Just because like when you're buying one of these action boxes or starter boxes, I've noticed that they generally give you a few different play pieces to get a feel for how the team would work,
Hmm.
but you're not necessarily getting a cohesive team that's going to work great. You're probably going to have to pick up one or two support things to actually make this army work well, but you'll at least understand how the faction works from the starter box.
Yeah, and honestly, the only reason I would have guessed that he's in there is because the picture of his model is in the rule book, which
Mm.
I'm partially just working under the assumption that the models pictured in the rulebook are the ones they had ready first and are therefore likely the ones that are going to be released first.
That's a smart
I
guess.
could be completely wrong. And I think you mentioned the next one I wanted to talk about, which was the Memorialist slash
Mm.
Sylvia Warda. Because
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear from the rule book that Sylvia is like the named version of a
Hmm.
memorialist. So
Right.
she might be the equivalent of we were talking about with the Beyond boxes. You have Urkala the Maw is the character with the First Anointed as the generic, or
Right.
in
Right.
the Cianin box you have what's it? Alula is the
Yeah,
Birdman.
Alula's the winged angel elf,
Yeah,
and then you
and
have a named specific version.
yeah. So I expect she's taking that role.
Mm. Yes.
She strikes me like they strike me more as a support because like
Yeah.
she's doing that very if you Norse, if you do Space Wolves and Warhammer type thing of she's there to write down their sagas and their crazy deeds, and they want to fight and protect her. So I expect that's more of what she's doing. I think
Right.
she's probably again more of these one of these buffing characters. And to me, it would be specifically she'd be primarily buffing around preventing people from fleeing or something, right? Because when she's
Mm.
there, she's watching. You don't want to start fleeing, otherwise that's going to be noted down. And then if you die, it's noted that you died running away, which is way worse than, dying facing the enemy. Or even if you survive, you go back to the hold and, everyone's reading or hearing about how, yeah, everyone else died nobly and you ran away. So I expect she might have something like that. Uh, I guess the other thing that jumped out to me in the lore, which would be cool, is there's a line in there about how the warriors of Mounthaven like protect them, even including like I think it specifically
Mhm.
says something about throwing themselves in the way of attacks meant for the
Yeah.
memorialist. So I wonder if they'll have some sort of instead of having like a bodyguard unit like the Mace escorts, that you know any unit essentially will bodyguard for the memorialist because they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the memorialists.
I
Also,
agree with all of that.
it's also just an
I had
amazing
similar
model.
notes for it. The memorialist does seem like a reversed bard in some way. Um, they have some of they want to be observing things, and everyone wants them to be observing them. So like the
Mm-hmm.
whole troop goes witness us, like that weird Mad Max thing where they spray the chrome on their face and then they get to do awesome stuff.
Yeah,
So somehow their presence there makes the other units more vigorous or attack better or something. So they are adding something to that in general. But I thought they also might have a negative aura for enemies.
hmm.
Like there might be something that, like, while they're out there, there is some reversal of fate, or maybe they add like disarm status or something to units in a certain aura. But as far as Sylvia, I had written down the same thing you mentioned. When attacked, nearby units could probably bodyguard for her. There is like some sort of automatic bodyguarding that seems to be on there. And she does seem to be similar to Eileen Kether Wynn, who
Mm-hmm.
is the Walker of the Leaf song. Um, in the Walker of the Leaf song, the unit is actually a higher point value. I think she's like 25 points
Yeah,
or something. And she's got a pretty good ability where she can teleport a whole unit like pretty far.
yeah,
The Eileen Cather Wynn doesn't have big unit teleportation. I don't know. The thought I had was Sylvia Warda. I think she's going to be a lesser point cost value memorialist, but have a different specialized effect. My guess is the actual memorialist is going to be big aura, and she's going to be smaller
hmm.
aura, with some kind of specialized focus, like a reason why you'd want her there.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like I think in the lore, Sylvia's only allowed to really go out in particularly dire situations because she's highly valued as an archivist or something like that. And yeah, just quickly, there's the line at the end of the memorialist entry of the death of a memorialist before they can write down one's achievements is worse than death itself. So, yeah, it definitely feels like they'll be throwing themselves in the way of her before, because they'd rather die than have her die and not have written about them. Just
Design wise on the model,
oh, it's
this is
beautiful.
oh, it's so good. Like I just the whole her little awning and all that, just the whole setup of that thing with her weird typewriter, just the whole thing is so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love the little lantern hanging down as well. So it's like she can just
yeah,
be walking around. Doesn't matter no matter what the light is, she can
yeah.
keep writing. Her those bags just covered in stuff. Like there's like
Oh yeah.
it looks like there's a pair of binoculars. There's like some sort of flask. There's a bedroll.
Mm.
Like yeah, there's she's gonna
Yeah.
be a lot of. I look forward to seeing her because especially because like her clothes and stuff too are just like a bunch of different colors. A lot of the other
Mm.
models that we've seen painted up are like similar scheme, which is good. Where she just seems to have a lot more just that artistic flair of whatever colors people want to throw on her, and
Mm.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. The collapsible awning is pretty great 'cause
It's so good.
you can see where
Yeah,
it
no,
drapes down.
this is one of the armies in general that I when I look at them like this is going to be fun to paint.
Oh yeah.
There's so much about like the War Crow miniatures that it's fun to put detail and time into them. That just the way that they're designed and the way that there's like different raised areas and lowered areas, any type of painting works well. This is a model I'm like that seems like it'd be fun to paint.
Yeah. That said,
She's cool.
my memorialist will probably only just be starting to write and not have already a page worth
Mm.
of very fine, detailed runes. Because
Right, right.
that's
I
like,
saw that. I saw that on there. And I'm like, what are you guys doing to us? How are we supposed to do all that's tiny? Yeah,
yep, yep.
I know what you mean.
Mine is like, yep. This is the first point of quill I'm putting down for the day. Everything else is.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess going on. So there's always the main base core unit. The bucklerman
I was gonna
of the
say,
faction.
do you have a guess of what 4 unit they'd put in there? Do you okay?
I have a
First off, do you
guess.
have a guess of what the 4 unit groups would be? Because there was like 5 of them that I was like, any one of these could be a 4 group unit.
Okay. So, do you want to tell me your guess or my? I have my guesses.
Here we go. Okay, all right. So the Mounthaven, so it's the regions, militia, multi-unit troops. Here we go. For the multi-unit troops, I have headhunters, warriors, raiders, and unrelenting. But I also think the militia might be their own unit as well. In the section where they talk about the militia, it almost seems like a generalized overview of some different groups. But I think there actually might be a named unit called the militia that's just an average, like 20-point multi-unit. So it's like the one you can put 3 of
Mhm.
in it. But unfortunately, that leaves me with 5 of the multi-units. So one of those is probably not a multi-unit.
Okay.
And then for the 2 elite unit guesses I have are the Hearth Guard or the Bombardiers. They're not called Bombardiers though. Yeah, Bombardier. Um,
Hmm.
and then, of course, the Beast Riders will be the larger 2 unit. But I think the Hearth Guard and the Bombardier will be an elite troop unit of 2. And then the other ones, like one of those 5, is going to be, groups of 4. I don't know which one wouldn't be, though. And there was nothing in the lore that indicated one more than the other. But let's hear yours.
So I'm basing it. What units I think are in play is based off of the rulebook. So they have, based on the pattern of previous ones,
Mm,
the units that are listed kind of in the troops of Mounthaven section will probably be units. So my guess is my guess is the Mounthaven militia are the unit that we're getting in the starter. I think they're
okay.
probably going to be the basic 20-point unit line troop. In terms of other 4-man units, similar to you, I think I think the warriors will be a 4-man unit.
Hmm.
I think the raiders will be a 4-man unit, kind of like scout elves kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then so I think those 2 will be, and then my guess will actually be that the Hearth Guard will be a 4-man unit.
Okay.
Potentially the Bombardiers. I
Okay.
think the Headhunter is going to be a Headhunter. I think it's going to be like a Lady
Oh, it's gonna be
Talia.
one guy.
Yeah, like a Lady Talia, like a character sniper.
Okay. All right.
And we'll get to it in a second. I think the Unrelenting will be the like 2 model unit.
The elite one. Okay.
I think they will
Yeah,
be more than the Hearthguard, just because
you
the
did
way they're
totally
described
right
is
on
like
that.
these bigger, bulkier dudes. But I definitely think we're getting the Militia as
Yeah.
the base unit, and the main reason is I was back and forth whether it would be Militia or Warriors, because those seem like who you'd get in the
Mm.
starter box. And
Good.
again, looking at the models that we have these 2 model. We've seen 2 models, which I think is just 2 of the 4, and they're
Right.
those guys in that kind of like that green diamond like chain shirt type looking thing with axes and shields, which the militia are described as axes and shields, whereas the warriors are described as having like the transforming axe
Yes.
shield gun
Yeah.
2-handed axe. And I'd expect them to be better armored, right? I expect them to be in that full plate, whereas these guys are wearing looks like an orichalcum version of a chain shirt or
Mm.
a scale mail shirt. So I the interesting thing actually, side note with the models, we have like the one without a helmet and the one with a helmet, and I have a feeling, you know how every faction has this is how you distinguish a leader,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You know, like do they have the big wing or the horn, the trophies? I I'm based on the 2 we've seen. I think the Mounthaven, this is the unit's officer might be the guy with a helmet, because
Right.
it's a
Because he's
wild
militia.
guess.
Right.
Just like
Right.
looking at the militia, assuming one of these is the leader and one isn't, the only thing distinguishing them is the one guy has a sweet helmet, which
Yeah.
I love that they went for the classic dwarf helmet must have the mustache built into the helmet, because
Mm. Yes. Yeah. I like that too. And I think you're right. I think that is going to be like, look, he's got a really cool hat, and the other guys don't have a really cool hat. So yeah, I think it'd be that simple. Those units themselves, I agree with you. I think those are the militia. I'm thinking with the warriors, we are going to see something a little more spectacular in their weapon design,
hmm
and we're probably going to get like one model that has it turned into the gun, one model that has the full shield and weapon combo, and one model that has a two-handed weapon. And then I don't know what the last one's going to be, but I think we're going to get 3 different versions of that transforming weapon.
yeah,
Just
I
that
hope
seems
so.
likely.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I'd be very disappointed if we didn't get them in different states, because that just feels like it's such a core aspect of their lore. Like
Yeah.
I personally am still disappointed that the Guardians of the Mound, none of them are actually shooting their crossbows. They're all using their
Mm,
weapons, and they have their crossbows in the back. So hopefully these guys,
yeah.
they actually, when we do get the warriors, they will be. And I expect the warriors, to be heavier armor, more elite. Maybe the militia will be faster than the other dwarves. Maybe they actually will be 3-3.
Ooh,
I think
interesting.
definitely. I think definitely when we get to, whenever they get around to releasing the raiders, they'll
Raiders.
probably
I
the faster dwarves.
I would guess 4-4. I guess these are like the one dwarven unit that actually moves elf speed.
Oh, you think elves? I was thinking they get up to 3-3. 4-4 is real fast.
It is really fast, but they're supposed to have mechanized boots for moving fast. I don't know. Like I just like it would make sense for none of them to move elf fast, but if one unit was elf fast, I don't know. You're probably right. I'm probably giving it way too much of a
No, that's
movement.
fair. They do have mech legs, so that could help them. Or maybe what it is they get up to 3-3, but maybe they charge faster.
Ooh,
Like
yeah, that could be cool.
similar to the Stompers in Red Caps. I think their
Okay.
base speed is the same as other Red Caps. It's 3-3, but because of their sweet mechanized legs, they get up to, I think, 12 stride charge instead of 9.
Okay.
So maybe
Yeah.
that'll be it. But they'll definitely
Okay.
be the fastest of them. I look forward to them. They're gonna have throwing
And
axes and stuff like that,
you
which
said
is
you
cool.
think the Hearth Guard is going to be the 2 elite unit?
No, I
No,
think
no.
the let me flip forward because I think I had a
Was it
yeah.
Unrelenting?
Yeah, so
No.
I think I'll just jump ahead to them. I think we have no idea what they look like. I think the
Yeah.
unrelenting will be the shadows of the like they'll be the 2 we get in the action pack.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was I was back and forth on whether it would be Hearthguard or Unrelenting, And the main thing that made me choose Unrelenting is because the Hearthguard are armed with axes and shields, and the Militia are armed with axes and shields. And I thought, do you know what? If I'm releasing them in an action pack, I don't want both of the units to just be axes and shields.
Wow.
Whereas
That's clever.
the
Okay.
Unrelenting have like massive axes and massive maces and super heavily. They seem like a unit based on the description of how heavily armored they are and massive, like the arms. They
Right.
seem like
It describes them like battering rams, kind of.
yeah, literally. It literally
Yeah.
says they are battering rams.
Yeah.
So I could see them, and they have like the best quality. I could see them being like a nice, just like visually. If I'm looking at grabbing an action pack, I could see CB being like, okay, we have the lighter armored militia. Let's have these two just bricks of armor with two giant weapons that, you know, they can't carry a shield because they're too busy wielding giant weapons. So we strapped shields to their shoulders.
That's a good guess for them varying up the starter box. Because I don't think for a starter box like that, I don't think I'd put the Grenadiers in there. I don't think I'd put the Raiders in there. Like you could add a bunch of different units to kind of mix it up, but I think that's actually a good choice for it. And I like your take that it's probably going to be the elite unit.
Yeah, I'd thought about the Bombardiers, but then I was like, that seems too similar to the Pioneers being the two-person model unit in Embersig.
Yeah.
And maybe CB doesn't care as much about mixing things up, but for me, I was like, we had a mortar unit already as a two-model unit. Let's let the Bombardiers be. I guess they'll be like, if they're the ranged unit, they're the arquebuser equivalent type of thing. Although, actually, speaking of, based on the description, they're gonna. It seems like they'll have a bunch of ranged units because the warriors have their rifles.
They have range. The headhunters. I still think the headhunters are going to be a 4 unit, but you might be right, and it might be like a named person or like an official one headhunter. But you're right. There are a bunch of ranged units. The Bombardiers seem like a unit that are going to have 2 different modes of fire. One that takes both actions, like a skill during the turn, because they have a thing where it says they have to lock their boots down to get a certain ability to fire. And my thought is they're going to have like really, really long range fire, like artillery, where they can't move for the turn, and then normal fire that's just their ranged attack.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like maybe if they have a skill that says, like if you use the skill, it says your range increases, and maybe you get like a reroll. Which means if you're using the skill, then that means you're not moving, right?
There you go. Yeah. I think that would be cool. That would be my thought for those. Yeah.
The description of them just reminds me, if you have played Total War Warhammer or played Warhammer itself, the Skaven Poison Wind Globadiers, like that's all I can picture right now with the description of the giant mortar pointing out over their backs. But they'll be cool. The Headhunter could be like, I think it was also just counting out which things I thought were units. Of all the ones that were in the running, I was like, sniper, maybe the sniper doesn't make it. But if we're thinking of units with range, we'll have Bombardiers that have ranged. We have Warriors that have ranged. And then we have the Raiders, which have throwing axes. So,
yes, the Raiders do seem like they're probably going to be a shorter range. But that is another ranged character. And then the Headhunters, if it's one unit or multiple, they have like a long-range sniper.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised with them having range equal to like the riflemen of the Embersig, maybe like 12 to 18 range. Like the way they describe their rifles. What's that? Even higher? You think? I think
it'll be in the 18.
And if that's the case, what's that?
I think it'll be. I think Telia is 15.
Okay.
So I think they'd be 15 to 18. So my thought is, like, even the Warriors, right? The Warriors, their guns are described as rifles. So at minimum, they should be as long range in my mind as the arquebusers. But
interesting.
Going back to that orichalcum chart that we were looking at before, it specifically describes the red orichalcum that's used as their version of gunpowder as being significantly stronger than gunpowder. So I almost expect that their equivalent gun to like an Embersig firearm should be a little bit further. right? If the Ember Sig rifle is 12, their rifle should be 14 because they have the gunpowder that has more power behind it.
That makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, like when you start looking at some of that stuff, I'm like, these guys might be really strong. These this faction might be a really strong faction.
My guess would be that they're going to be more elite, so you might have less of them on the field.
Whereas like with the Saiyan, you have like you could get like 12 or 13 guys on the field and still be at 200 points. With these guys, you might have like single units that are weighing out a bunch of your army.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess the last thing I'd see in that action pack, or I expect to see in the action pack, is kind of what we had mentioned before, is that the folder. Because I think that to me, they seem like the more likely to be like the equivalent to the cast. Like they're the Frostfire Herald, they're the Breath, they're the Evoker, they're the Druid, right? Like
Right.
I think they'll be we want to make sure there's something that's just a pure unattached caster in the box. So a new person picking it up, puts it on the table for a demo. You can be like, okay, and this is how magic works. So we haven't seen
That's
what that
good
would
call.
look like. They didn't put
Do
a
you
picture
think
in the
they'll
book, but they did have the Warcode Venture guy kind of put in there, which was cool.
do you think they'll release that? So you mentioned that the Warcrow Adventure had one of the folders in it.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll still like they'll just re-release that model?
No.
But like no. Okay,
No.
so they'll make a different model for the folder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like
Right.
they had a guy that was a folder, which people that have Warcode Adventures could proxy him if you wanted.
Sure.
But I think they're going to release a new model for him, like a generic folder, essentially. I don't like just like all the other Warcode Ventures models, just like we got there. Embersig had the Warcode Ventures caster as well, and Aid as well, or not Gale Falchion as well. They'll have a generic non-Warcode Ventures. I hope eventually they put their Warcode Ventures characters as regular release and properly get them in the game for like normal play,
Yeah.
not just in the Lost in the Fog allowing play. But
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if the folder looks similar, right? I know myself and a lot of people during Warcode Ventures got super excited when we learned about the origami magic dwarf, the dwarf that does magic origami. So, which is it's just a cool concept.
It is. It's weird. It's just very weird. Yeah.
So
So okay, so that's like the starter box. I think it's a really good assessment of what would be in the starter box. Can I distract you from that for a moment because
course.
there's a character in the dwarves that I'm like, I have no idea what they're gonna do with this character, but I feel like it's gonna be a little bit like the druid from Saiyanin,
okay.
where it's so this is the War Augur. The War Augur and I'm gonna butcher this name. Prodrix 13 Executor of the Master Plan. The War Augur is the generic thing, and then Prodric would be like the name specific version. They would probably use the same model, but the War Augur is a unit that I'm like, based on the lore, I don't know how you introduce this model onto the battlefield because this model says that it should be able to change enemy setups to some degree. Almost mechanically, this War Augur should be allowing me to change the placement of enemy units on the board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a weird unit that says it can predict how the game will start before it starts.
So I think in terms of how I can see them playing around, like the types of rules they play around with, I think is like look at things like the Strategos. So like having some way to help control how many turns are left, having something that helps control, like helps you win the initiative, right? So you can have control over the initiative. Maybe they have something that interacts with ambushers, right? Like something not exactly the Dark Master, but something like the Dark Master, where if the War Augur is not going to be caught by surprise by someone ambushing in because they know the plan, they know that that's coming, right?
Interesting. Okay,
So,
yeah, that's
things.
okay.
I
So
think,
like you can't place within a certain range of him or something.
or his unit can make when you place, if you place within a certain distance, your unit gets to make an action, right?
I see.
So
Okay.
I think, I can't predict. I could never predict exactly what crazy rule they come up with, but I think looking at like the Dark Master and the Strategos, those types of rules that they have definitely fit
Mm,
into this kind of predicting the future type plan, or
okay.
type model would be my guess. And I agree. I think Frodrix is probably the named version. I wouldn't be
Right.
surprised if they are, in the release cycle, you get the action pack with the with a separate unit box, a limited edition model, and then
Mm,
we'll get like, you get the officers pack and a separate named character. I wouldn't
mm.
be surprised if the War Augur slash Rodrix is like the single blister box that comes at the same time as the officer pack would be my guess.
That makes sense.
And
Yeah.
I think it'll be exactly that. Strategos, Dark Master style,
Hmm.
make rules that make it feel like you knew the plan all along, that allow
Hmm.
you to essentially respond to your opponent's things and make it so they're less impactful.
Right. And I don't know how they're gonna end up playing that out, but one of the things that I thought of mechanically that could simulate the mechanics of we're winning even when we're losing. There might be some way to create like floating dice pools based on losses or something. If you lose a unit or something, or you lose a model, you get to start pooling up dice to come back swingy in some way. That was our sacrificial unit. We wanted you to kill
Mm,
them. Really, we were planning this strategy the whole time to come over here. And so now when we're doing this attack, we get some additional dice to add to the pool or something. If that might be a little simplistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if
no.
there was something where when the Mounthaven dwarves lose in play, they actually win harder. Like almost like you want to sacrifice some of your units to make a swingy play.
Yeah, like some sort of like tally where as you lose things, then you can actually spend that tally to repeat dice or things like that. Actually, more we talk about it, I wonder if they could have some sort of ability to, help rally troops where
Mm.
it's like, no, like if I knew this guy understood the future and he said, "Don't worry, don't run, it's okay, this is going to plan,"
Yeah.
I'm a lot less likely
Um,
to run.
right.
So
That no, that would so the other the other the other thing that might be a weird mechanic that Mount Haven could use for units that get lost in the combat is the ancestor.
mhm.
And the ancestors unit, I imagine they're going to have an actual ancestor unit. But now that I know that the Mount Haven dwarves get to come back and fight even when they're dead, there might be mechanics that allow units to become ancestors in the middle of fights. I don't think that would be fair. Like, I can't think of a way to make that reasonably happen, but the ancestor themselves and the named character, the Walled John, the last of the first, like both of those units are so strange. I have no idea what they do with those.
That's true because they are kind of like a ghost.
Yeah, it's a ghost, but then the Walgen, the last of the first, is a unit that he doesn't even know which fight he's in. Like he's kind of going nuts. He still thinks he's in the first mishap, and he's
Yeah,
like, "We're fighting that last bridge battle. Come on, lads!" And it's like, "That's not what we're doing." And so
he might have
that's a weird
bloodlust.
character. Yeah, yes, like he's just going nuts the whole time. I don't like those units were ones that I was like, Mount Haven might have some mechanics for after units die.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what it would be, but they also like you mentioned, they might have a way to mitigate their units being demoralized. Like there might be no, this was the plan the whole time. We're going to ignore the elements of stress or something. Like yeah, that was I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it, but they do seem to have some ability to subvert death potentially, but
Mm-hmm.
also subvert demoralization potentially.
Yeah.
And those things seem to be layered into the I don't know like mechanics of how this unit should work or how these models should work.
Yeah. That's interesting. I a question for you. So, after the action pack, or sorry, so like assuming we follow the CNN release, because this is the only other
Yeah.
solo faction release. So we'll get the action pack.
Hmm.
Usually we'd get another 4 model box. So assuming we're
Right.
getting the militia as part of the action pack, what do
Hmm.
you think will be that unit box? And what do you
Mm.
think? What do you think would be like the limited edition model slash alt sculpt that we'll get in that initial release? If you were
So
designing it, what would
yeah.
you throw in there?
Okay, so the Broderick's 13th Executor of the Master Plan, I think I agree with you. That's going to be one of the limited edition, like, alternate sculpts for a War Augur. I don't know if a War Augur is going to be in the first box, but I'd like it to be. Like, I would like to see what the heck a War Augur does. Like, that's such a weird, it's a weird unit that
Yeah.
goes, we showed up to the battlefield because we already knew exactly how everything's going to go, and we're just here to make sure it does.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not really like a fighter, like I like while we're here, we're just making sure you guys enact the plan the right way. I also want to see in that initial box the Memorialist. I think Sylvia Wardu will be released like Catherine. No, no, Cather Wynn, the elf jumping out of the portal.
You think?
I,
You don't
I
think? See, I think that since she is the memorialist, right, they are going to be the same model. I could see them
right.
doing her
And you think that's going
as
to be in the starter box,
yeah, because
the
we've
Memorialist?
seen the because it's one of the like 5 models we've seen. I expect the
Sure,
memorialist to
sure.
be in there. I almost
Hmm.
think that the memorialist or I think Sylvia I think is the model we've seen like that the female one.
Okay.
I think that is
Yeah, the named
Sylvia.
one. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the limited edition bonus model in the bundle is just a generic memorialist.
Hmm.
And my
Okay.
my thought process is with the last one, right? You had a Maori, and then the limited edition model was the Syzygian, who is like the uh, generic version
Oh,
of him. Or with
yeah.
CNN, you had Leoslaith, and then the limited edition model was the Glade Cap. Was it the
Mhm.
Grand Captain or whatever? Who's like the
Yeah.
the generic version of Leoslaith. So
Right.
because the issue for me is I expect that they won't release too many new units right off the bat, and they'll want to have 2 different models for those 2 things. Maybe they won't, but that would be my
Yeah.
guess. I'm
Okay.
less sure about who I think the 4 model box was. Assuming we're getting the militia first, I know who my guess is. My guess would be that we'll get the other thing in the bundle, the Grove curtailers of the release. I think we'll get the Mounthaven warriors.
Okay.
That
And
would that's my guess.
the Mounthaven Warriors, my that was my guess for what would be the equivalent of like the Wardens. I think they're going to be the 40 point unit
Okay.
because just their description makes them sound totally solid. Like they're not average. They're just jack of all trade fighters, right? They're going to be good at long range, medium range. You know,
You think they'll be 40? Then what would you put the Hearthguard at?
it's a good point. And that's why initially I put the Hearthguard as a 2 model elite unit because the Hearthguard
Mm-hmm.
sounded so incredibly like just they were like so badass that I'm like, well, that's going to be an elite unit or something. That's going to be like the Anointed group or the
Yeah.
the Shadows of You. But if you're right, then yeah, the Hearthguard would be the 40 point unit, and the Warriors would be like 30 or 35 or something like that. Which would make sense for them being like the second one. Like they're just
Yeah.
going to be stalwart, good all around unit to put into your roster. So
I could also see
I
the
agree.
Raiders.
I
I
would
could see the
with
Raiders as well.
the Raiders seem weird, and I don't mind that, but I think you're right. I think they kind of trickle it out with some normalcy, like they kind of ease you in.
Mm-hmm.
Raiders seem like it's like Raiders and the Bombardiers. Those are whether those are 2 model units or 4 model units. I feel like those are stranger ones. And like if
Yeah.
Bombardiers are a four person unit, I think the Bombardiers are going to leave patches of fire on the ground. Like I
Oh,
don't
like
know how
yeah, you
how
could
much,
do
but I
it.
feel like I feel like they're going to be spreading fire.
Similar to how I think it's the evoker in
Mm.
Northern Tribes. I think one of their spells. I think when they summon the rock, one of the
It
augments
leads,
leaves
yeah,
a thing on the ground, which is
yeah.
cool.
I think they're going to do the same thing, and maybe it'll be like the evoker and just be a one model unit. I don't know, but the way that the bombardier reads out, it's like changing the battlefield with fire.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
it's like a flaming
um,
mortar shot. The only
yeah,
reason I suggest my guess is still the Warriors. I could see the
yeah, I think.
Raiders only because the Raiders to me seem, similar in their weirdness and function as the Guardians of the Mound, which were the first unit released for Feudum following essentially their action pack, right?
Right, right.
It was like
They
their
got
scout
the
unit.
yeah. Well, yeah, right. They started theirs with the Gisserm, whatever the
Yeah,
spearmen.
the Guisarmier and the Mace Escorts.
That's right. And the Mace Escorts was two, and now they're coming out with their archers, which is like their ranged unit. Yeah, you're probably right. I think that's a good assessment that the warrior pack will be the next one.
Yeah. So
What? Good, good.
I was gonna say we've talked about most things in like that's the initial thing. I think we've already talked a bunch of future releases and what we think they are. We didn't really mention it. I know you had sent me the photo, being like, "I want this in the presentation," which is what I think is very obviously the large model for the faction, the Titan, which
Gosh, I think it's so cool.
uh,
I think it's
I'm not usually a fan of baby carrier models. Every game has some sort of model that looks like a guy in a little baby
uh-huh.
carrier. But this
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
pretty, as baby carrier models go, it's pretty cool. It has like that giant pile of, I assume, blue orichalcum at the top. It's like a weird
Hmm.
shield arm and like some sort of energy emitter from its arm. Yeah, it's definitely the
Right,
large model, which means the saddest thing about this is that will be the last model we get from Mounthaven.
right. I suspect that's correct. I am interested to see how they end up packaging these things because there's a bunch of units that as I'm going through them, I'm like, well, this could be a support unit, right? For
Hmm.
sure. There was only a couple of them. A named character named Rasha Aoric. She's going to be the mounted character. So
Yeah.
she's going to be the equivalent of like the Hetman or the Wraithmane mounted.
Yeah.
The fact that she's named and also mounted is significant. Like that's actually different from what I've seen in the past. But we have like the beast.
CNN's mounted character is named.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay, I
Aochan.
haven't.
Yeah, he's like the elf centaur.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Okay, then okay. So then she's going to be similar to that. But she's a character that on her lore sheet, it seems like she's not going to have a support function where other ones, some of them had support functions because she's part of a group that's like we don't work well with others,
Yeah.
and her whole thing is being part of a tribe that's like she communicates better with the beast but not people. So I could understand if she attaches well to the beast steed riders, and maybe gives them like some kind of bonuses. Like we have seen that
Hmm.
in the past, where the music guy from the Sanins, the bard from the Sanins, he actually interacts with beasts better than humans, and
Hmm.
so he makes it so that the beasts have to roll a stronger will save than human or than the regular models do. So wouldn't be surprised with her being mounted, but otherwise, a lot of the units from Mounthaven seemed like they could have a really strong support function. There was a
Hmm.
bunch of them that seemed to work together naturally and like support each other. Like I would be totally, it would make absolute sense for the War Augur to be a support unit.
Yeah.
For let's see, what was the other one? For the Folder, the Memorialist, Bombardiers could have a support function. Um, Titans not so much. Raiders not so much. Actually, there was a few of them. The keep of the Sacred Flame. A lot of them have this thing where they're kind of looking for another unit to work with, and they have some function that they're adding, whether it's like additional range or like some predictive matrix for the battlefield.
Hmm.
But a bunch of them are kind of like, hey, we're going to work well with a troop. Even the main lady, Olga, she has a section where it's like it explains how she works well with troops and she rallies her units. So I'm expecting a lot of support functionality in these, and support functionality like with Drago. Drago I think is better on a support function than he is by himself. I think Drago by himself is actually worse for 40 points than if you tie him
Yeah,
to some kind of unit on the field.
you're
And I think
you're
we're going to
paying
see,
for his auras.
yes.
Yeah,
Whereas if I stick him, yeah, I'm paying for his auras, but I kind of don't want him for attacking. You
yeah,
know, he's okay to attack on his own. He's much better adding to some unit of bucklermen or something. The Mounthaven dwarves feel like a faction that's gonna be working well as a team.
yeah.
Like their overall vibe and function might be support each other with auras, with attaching each other to each other.
I
Go ahead.
agree. You're using support not as that they're all going to be support characters. You're talking about they're going to be supporting and synergizing well together.
I also mean it in the attachment way. Like we have seen a bunch of models where the model comes out and it has like a secondary function to
Yeah,
support, like to actually attach. And yeah, I'm using the word support, but to attach to another card as a support unit. I feel like a lot of Mounthaven will work that way, and that's
yeah.
probably I'm probably wrong on that
No,
prediction, but
I think you're right. Like I think they'll have more characters, support and officer, right?
there
I
you
think
go.
they'll have more
Yeah.
characters that attach and join units than something like
Okay.
CNN, which most of their characters don't join units. They have a lot of support characters that are running around on their own, or even Scions as
Yeah.
well, right? Like they have a lot of characters that don't join units. I think Mounthaven there'll be might be a few that don't join, but I think
Mm.
most of them will have an option to join. And I think if we were talking about these synergies, I think they'll very much continue what we've seen with CNN, Feudum, and Scions,
Mm.
which have a lot more internal synergies and bubbles and units like comboing off each other. Like you get a bit
Yeah.
of that with Northern Tribes and Embersig, but
Mm.
I found the three more recent factions have a lot more with that. Now,
Mm.
I I I think that might be a bit of a as the designers have gotten, you know, more willing
Mm.
to push and experiment.
Yeah.
I think that might be a part of it. Like I think there was some planning of these things all way back before, but I definitely feel it a lot more in the newer factions, right? Like seeing with
Mm.
Scions, like how the dead stuff is synergizing and these bubbles of guys, and that when you're moving you need to be majoring a lot and all these different synergies, or all the different like portals and making sure you have a tree or a Nemoris person, all
Mhm.
that type of synergies, or
Right.
feudum with their knights near nobles, but some non-knights and nobles and things like that. I think we'll get a lot of that with Mounthaven, and I think we'll continue to see that more and more as the game goes.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I still
I
think it's
I
funny.
agree.
I think they're going to be slow. That's my biggest
Yeah.
concern is I like movement in games,
Mm.
and from like a purely fluff reason, it makes sense that dwarves are a bit slower. But at the same time, I hope they balance it in a way that makes it so like they're slower, but also they have tricks that make it so they're not so slow that that becomes a problem for actually competing in the game itself.
And one of the things I think they might do to mitigate some of this are some of the mechanics that I hope to see in the future on their units. They mention in the lore section for Mounthaven some of the things that Mounthaven produces. And when I'm going through the characters that exist here, it doesn't specifically say any of them have these things, but I'm like, okay, I wouldn't be surprised for units to have dynamite abilities. It's very like common in the lore for them to have dynamite. I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of units had like one use long range blast over here. They are slow. They might make up for their slowness by being in like crazy range.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even to the point where they're blowing up cover, like taking out cover off the map. Wouldn't surprise me. Wagon drivers. It's mentioned that they have wagon drivers. I would love to see some sort of troop transport down the line just to get these guys moving into the field.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with rail workers. There might be something like with the druid where the druid can put a tree unit on the field during the planning stage. I wouldn't be surprised if down the line there was a rail unit where you go put up a rail, and now Mounthaven can have early access to one part of the map or something.
Or
Um,
miners, right?
there,
Miners digging a hole, right?
yes, there. Oh, even yeah, even better. Wow, more narrative. That's good. Air mechanics is mentioned. I don't see anything in the unit makeup that describes that, but I would not be surprised to see some sort of mechanized blimp or a helicopter. It might be a little silly for a helicopter, but a blimp unit, I wouldn't be surprised. Nebulants are probably the thing I was most excited about going into this section when I learned about those, and like the fact that they're fog divers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy unit I'd like to know more of, and I hope that they put that on a couple of units because the dwarves are probably single-handedly the faction that could deal with spellcasters. Like you could have not orichalcum. It's a different metal that they mention that they work with. Um, it's the other aura something or other. I can't find my unit here. They could have tinge alterers, like basically something like a one of those on the top of a building, a lightning rod where
Mm-hmm.
spells just go to it, and they could have this thing made of that metal that just channels spell casting to it. I wouldn't be surprised with something like that. And then the fog. Oh yeah, auric titrum.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the auric
I think
titrum
that's
is
like
the
a
metal that.
thing the northern tribes don't have, and that's the one that they use with orichalcum to make the we were talking about before, the calcitrum, the white,
Yes,
the essentially the white orichalcum that's the anti capital F fog
yes. And
coating.
I wouldn't be surprised if they mixed in something like that. They had like some kind of thing they could drop on the field that just channels spells into it. There's a lot of weird things they could do with dwarves based on the lore they've established with them that I wouldn't be surprised with any weird mechanics that they had. Like if they
Yeah,
if they had something where it's like you're gonna put a mining token up on the map, and now now your dwarves can all summon up out of that hole, I'd be like, yeah, that checks out.
yeah,
So
it's I was there's some predictions I was making, but what I've been learning with like the rules, it's becoming increasingly hard to predict some of the crazy
mm,
special rules. Like some like basic stuff, I can probably guess. How many wounds they have, what morale, stuff like
mm,
that. That's easy. Like realistically,
yeah.
that's a
Sure.
smaller playground. Um, but some of the like what they've been doing with different skills and abilities
Mhm.
and passives and stuff lately have been crazy. So I'm definitely excited to see what we get, and hopefully we're not
Mm.
waiting too long
Yeah,
to get to see that. But
I think it's
it's
sometime in March, as you said. So,
yeah, I think there's talks about Adepticon is the most likely. So
mm.
uh, that means I'll just need to get this edited and uploaded as soon as possible before we actually hear real information.
Awesome. Yeah,
But
I appreciate you having this discussion with me.
no, thanks
If
for
this,
having me on, or
yeah, yeah, no
thanks for having me
problem.
on.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And it was fun talking with you all about all this. You have a really good knowledge base of all the different stuff. You have a lot of things in your brain related to this game. I'm impressed.
Yeah, yeah, it's I'm sure it's a very good use of my brain space, but it should be fun. And my favorite thing is the number of people I know that have just been waiting for the dwarves to get into the game.
Mm.
It'll be nice to finally be like, hey, now you have no excuse. Buy your dwarves, get in the game, and let's play it. But as I said, thanks for being on. Do you have any last thoughts that you wanna say before we
Well,
sign out?
so what? It sounds like you have a lot of experience playing different war games. Is this your favorite war game?
That's a hard question. I don't
Mhm,
know if it's my favorite war game. I play a number of different games, especially right now,
mhm,
and I like them for different reasons, so it's hard for me to say
mhm,
it's my absolute favorite. I have been really enjoying it a lot lately, and I've been playing it a lot. I can't say it's my favorite. Like Infinity will always have a big
mhm,
place in my heart. I've played Infinity a lot. Sometimes I'd prefer to play Infinity over this. Sometimes I'd prefer to play this. Like if I want to play a crunchier game where I need to be thinking in some ways a lot more, but also like it probably expect that it'll take a bit longer,
mhm,
then I'll play Infinity. Warcrow, I find one of the things I like about it is the games go quick, and then usually there's a point in the game where the decisions become more obvious, and it really can suddenly be like turn, 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 and we're done, right? Like it can wrap up
Okay.
pretty quickly. So I can't say it's my
I see.
favorite, but it's one of my favorites, which is why I haven't cut it from the games I'm regularly playing, like some other games.
I gotcha. Okay, because I got a sense that you know a lot about it, and you at least like the lore of the
Yes.
game. Like that's what like you pick Scions, so that puts us at odds a little bit. Not really, but yeah, your knowledge of the lore is expansive.
For me, the lore of a game is a big part of what draws it helps draw I find me into a game. It helps me keep stay in a game. Like
Yeah,
I much prefer that when I'm playing something on the table, I can visualize it cinematically what it would be like in the lore, like what's actually happening, as opposed to essentially just moving chess pieces around, right?
I gotcha.
So
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. That's kind of why I'm into it as well. I like the narrative aspect of it.
yeah, well, I look forward to
Yeah.
talking to you more in the future, and I look forward to people telling us how we got everything wrong in our guesses. Uh, everything we thought was a character is a unit. Everything that was a unit is a character. But
Right.
with that, thanks for being on, and for all of those that are watching, thank you for watching, and may the dice be ever in your favor. Bye.